Look closely at the second hand on a cheap digital watch and compare it to a high-end Swiss mechanical watch. The battery-powered Quartz ticks forward with a rigid stutter, while the mechanical hand glides in a smooth, continuous sweep. But here is the catch. That stuttering, mass-produced digital watch is mathematically superior at actually keeping time. From a purely functional standpoint, the mechanical watch is an entirely obsolete piece of technology. Despite this glaring technical defeat, the Swiss mechanical watch industry survives. In fact, it holds a booming, seemingly untouchable monopoly over global horological luxury. Making sense of this impossible survival requires looking past gears and springs. We have to track how the Swiss managed to repeatedly discard and rewrite the very definition of what a watch is supposed to be. In the mid-16th century, Switzerland had absolutely no timekeeping pedigree. If you wanted a high-quality clock, you went to the master craftsman in Great Britain or France. The regional shift began with a French theologian named John Calvin. He spearheaded the Protestant Reformation in Geneva and established a notoriously austere rule over the city, outright banning the display of personal wealth and the wearing of jewelry. This sudden prohibition left Geneva's highly skilled goldsmiths facing financial ruin. But Calvinism offered a strict theological loophole. Clocks and watches were viewed as practical instruments necessary for managing God's time, rather than vain adornments. Genevan jewelers pivoted to watchmaking as a survival tactic, ensuring the Swiss watch began its life as a rigid instrument of faith rather than a luxury good. As Geneva's watchmaking industry grew and the city became overcrowded, craftsmen were pushed outward, relocating to the harsh, isolated valleys of the Jura Mountains. The freezing alpine winters trapped local farmers indoors for months at a time. The watchmakers turned this geographic vulnerability into an industrial advantage by developing a decentralized manufacturing method known as the établissage system. Firms distributed materials across the mountainsides, assigning a specific task to each household. One farm cut gears, another forged mainsprings, and a third polished cases. In the spring, master watchmakers gathered these individual parts and assembled them into finished timepieces. This early form of crowdsourced assembly line production allowed Switzerland to outproduce the traditional, tightly controlled workshops of Paris and London, making high-quality watches affordable for a rising middle class. By the 19th century, a new threat emerged from across the Atlantic. American manufacturers began mass-producing watches using uniform, machine-made parts, threatening to permanently undercut the handcrafted Swiss market. The Swiss responded by formalizing strict precision standards and engineering a completely new form factor. During World War I, officers in the trenches needed to synchronize maneuvers at a glance, driving the creation of durable wristwatches. This era of innovation culminated with the introduction of the Rolex Oyster in 1926. It featured the world's first waterproof and dustproof case, proving the Swiss could deliver robust, real-world utility. The identity of the watch had evolved once again. It transitioned from an affordable civilian pocket item into a highly durable, everyday tactical necessity. In 1969, the Swiss faced a technological leap that nearly wiped them off the map. Japanese manufacturers introduced mass-produced battery-powered quartz watches to the global market. Inside these new watches, a tiny quartz crystal oscillated at a precise frequency when stimulated by electricity. The resulting movements were vastly cheaper to manufacture and infinitely more accurate than the most meticulously adjusted mechanical escapement the Swiss could produce. This graph illustrates the devastating fallout over the following decade. Between 1970 and 1983, the number of Swiss watchmakers plummeted from roughly 1,600 down to fewer than 600, leading to massive job losses and permanent workshop closures. The Swiss refer to this dark era as the Quartz Crisis. The single metric they had spent 400 years perfecting, mechanical accuracy, had been rendered obsolete overnight. The salvation of the industry came from a business consultant named Nicholas G. Hayek, who executed a highly unconventional survival strategy. In 1983, he merged Switzerland's largest conglomerates to form the Swatch Group and fought back using the very technology that threatened them. They released the Swatch, a cheap, colorful, plastic, battery-powered watch that instantly became a global pop culture phenomenon. Selling plastic watches was never the end goal. It was a massive cash generator, specifically designed to buy enough time to keep the elite, traditional Swiss legacy brands afloat while they planned their next move. Hayek's true masterstroke was a complete pivot in philosophy. The Swiss elite entirely abandoned the race for timekeeping accuracy. Instead, they completely reframed what a mechanical watch was. It was marketed as wearable art, a statement of heritage, and a triumph of microengineering, celebrated specifically because it relied on tiny, hand-finished gears rather than a battery. To defend this newly crafted luxury reputation, the Swiss Federal Council implemented strict legal protections around the designation Swiss-made. This donut chart visualizes the rigid criteria required for that label. At least 60% of a watch's total manufacturing costs must be generated within Switzerland, and the movement must be cased and inspected locally. The Swiss industry survived not by clinging to timekeeping accuracy, but by letting the mechanical watch evolve. They accepted its technical obsolescence and repositioned it as a masterwork of human engineering.